What is going on? Now, we haven't done one of these in like 2 weeks. The last one we did actually got a warning from YouTube. So I was like 2 weeks, wasn't a ban or anything like that or a strike. It was just a warning. It was like 2 weeks and then we're back into it. So I just want to go over quickly what the warning was. I got the email here. It was from the last podcast. We talked about the cashless society in the next couple of years, how it's probably going to be in full effect and COVID, etc. But what the exact words in the email are, I'll go over quickly. Hi, Shane Phillips. We wanted to let you know our team reviewed your content and we think it violates our spam, deceptive practices and scams policy, which is interesting. We know you may not have realized there's a violation of our policies, obviously, so we're not applying a strike to your channel. However, we have removed the following content from your YouTube, and they put a link into what they've taken down. We realize this may be disappointing news, but it is our job to make sure the YouTube is a safe place for all, i.e. a safe place for them and the content they want to allow. If you think we've made a mistake, you can appeal this decision and you'll find more details below. Now, if it was a strike, I'd appeal it. Essentially, it's a warning. What that means from future, we'll see in the future podcast. But we're back to normal now, back to weekly podcasts. We're going to get straight into it. We've got 10 things roughly that I want to cover, 10 stories over the last week and a half. The first one being why one school allows students to have smoking and vaping breaks. I didn't think this was legit at first because I wouldn't have assumed that. I thought they were talking about staff, but no, it's students at a special school, which means obviously kids with disabilities and stuff like that. Students of all ages at a special school in Queensland are permitted to have smoking and vaping breaks to reduce stress and disruptive behaviour during class, parents and former staff have revealed, which is mental because I'm assuming if they're in school, they're under the age of 17. It's illegal to smoke under the age of 17, under the age of 18. So I'm assuming, yeah, it's tough, this one, because it's breaking laws. So, and vaping is obviously shit. Smoking in general shit. Anyone with half a brain knows that. But to allow kids, regardless of what they've come up with reasoning behind, is ridiculous. So it's understood, the school's name, I'm going to butcher this, but it's understood, Arethusa College, Deception Bay campus north of Brisbane reportedly implemented the policy several years ago, despite staff raising concerns. Well, because those staff have half a brain. As many as 50 students are believed to be on a list as permitted to smoke or vape and even have a designated area to do so. I would look into that a bit more. It's just nuts that's a thing. I know obviously like special schools have completely different policies and stuff like that than regular schools as they need to. But to implement a smoking and vaping break, also, workplaces do have, you look at smoking breaks. Some places have every 15, 20 minutes you can go and have a smoke, which I think is ridiculous. You shouldn't be treated any differently because you smoke. That to me is smoking and vaping is just disgusting anyway. But to allow kids to do it in general, I think is pretty shit. I don't know how that's banned or how I haven't heard of that earlier. But while the college seeks permission from parents, which it should seek legal permission rather than just the parents' permission, one claims that their child was allowed even after they informed the college they didn't want the child to smoke at school. So essentially they're going behind the child's back and asking the kid, hey, do you want to smoke? Yeah, okay, cool, you can do so, rather than mum and dad telling them not to. Obviously, it's illegal to supply cigarettes or e-cigarettes to anyone under 18. Queensland legislation also states that education facilities, both public and private, should be smoke-free, obviously. Arethusa College insists that it's never been found in breach of our legislative duties. We have been open and transparent with public health authorities, Executive Principal Lisa Coles told the publication. We have seen the majority of young people who come to us with a nicotine dependency leave our college without one. Well, kids shouldn't have a nicotine dependency anyway. She added the college took a transparent approach to smoking or vaping dependency without judgment while addressing the issue with students through a vigorous education program. That sounds a bit dodge. And they've just got pictures of kids smoking and vaping. I mean, look, Are there worse things to be doing? Yes. Smoking is disgusting. Smoking is bad. It's just a fact. Vaping is probably even worse. And at the end of the day, it's always going to be a thing. You can put all the images and information you want on. It's just still going to happen. I mean, people still drink. People still smoke. People still do drugs. People are still overweight, and they all know ideally, they all know the consequences of those, and they still do them anyway. So, as horrible as it sounds, if the idiots remove themselves from the playing board, then they do so. I think if you're thick enough to smoke or do drugs, etc., then you're thick enough to go. Now, the next story. Australian bosses warn staff from home, working from home could have their pay and benefits slashed. Now, we are obviously a couple of years removed from the pandemic. We're obviously getting through that. Obviously, the pandemic starting in the back end of 2019, 2020. This was always going to be a thing where... Why is this story going? Where working from home served its purpose for a number of years. And there's certain jobs where I think it can be a bit more, I guess, productive. But at the end of the day, if you're working for someone, you're working for someone. You have a boss. They tell you what to do, you do it. If you don't like it, leave. Go and be your own boss. Go work for someone else. If a business says, all right, you can work 2 days at home and the rest you have to come in, then that's what you got to do. I don't have a problem with this at all. People want to complain about, oh, we worked in the office, we worked from home for a couple of years. We didn't have, COVID isn't a thing anymore. It's just get back to the office, do what you're told. If you don't like it, leave. So 13% of employees want to cut the pay of staff who work from home. A few companies insist on a full return due to resistance. Well, I mean, look, 13% of employees, which is small, want to cut the pay of staff who work from home. Because I also saw people who work from home want to be compensated for using their home internet, etc., or having to drive to work. But you didn't get that before, so you shouldn't get it now. Or if you do want that, then you should get your pay cut, because the idea where if I'm a CEO and I'm having a conversation at the coffee machine with someone, I'm going to value that employee more than having to call someone at home or jump on a Zoom meeting to ask their opinion. I want someone who's front and center in front of me. I'm going to value them more. It's just common sense. People who work from home, they're working from home because they're becoming slightly lazy and they don't want to leave home. That's just how it is. And look, at the end of the day, a lot of people have kids, and I get they want to be around their kids, but at the end of the day, so does everyone else. But you work for someone. That's how it is. If you don't want to work for someone, work for yourself, and you can set up your own schedule. But if you have a boss, you do what you're told. That's just how it works. A staggering number of Australian bosses have revealed that they are prepared to slash the pay and benefit of staff who choose to work from home. I mean, depending on what that means, I don't really have a problem with it. Some 37% of senior executives reveal plans to differentiate the pay between remote and in-office staff in the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. The shock revelation was made in a global survey conducted by law firm Herbert Smith Freehills, with the findings released on Monday. Some 38% of bosses working from home would become a privilege that would have to be earned through trust and seniority. Another 13% went a step further to say remote workers would not only have their pay slashed, but their benefits cut as well. I mean, if you're working from home, should you get the same accrual rate of annual leave as someone who is in the office? Maybe not. I mean, if you're already at home versus someone who has to take time out, they've got to leave earlier, they've got to drive, they've got to get on public transport, the same thing home. When you think about it, I mean, maybe they should have differential pay, differentiate in privileges. I'm not against this, if I'm being completely honest. I'm not against it. I think if you're going to stay home when we're pretty much completely removed from COVID, then I think you should suffer those consequences if you don't want to return to work, if you don't want to return to the office. While the amount of work being done from home has fallen since the pandemic officially ended on May the 5th, a huge 88% of companies say their workforce is still at least partly hybrid. The HSS work from home report said that bosses are responding by rolling back freedoms granted to employees during the pandemic. Some 500 bosses were interviewed during the survey, with 70% saying more work will be done from the office or on site within the next 2 years. I'm on board with that. Work from home will remain an option, but almost half the employers surveyed, or 47%, expect remote work to become a reward for loyalty and trust and seniority. Overall, 38% said they expect work from home to be seen as a privilege. Fine with that. Many companies are telling staff they expect them in the office more often. Again, fine with that, including on certain days. But they are facing resistance to a full return to work. Fire them. It is what it is. There's only a handful of organizations mandating a full return to workforce, and that's being met with a significant amount of resistance, obviously. About 42% of employers have stipulated that workers must return to the office in a particular number of days during the week. I mean, the fact that you have to negotiate, I mean, if you're the CEO of a company, it's your company, bro. You do what you want. On average, Victorians work from home the most, 25%, just ahead of New South Wales, 23%. In all other states and territories, the 21% of all work or less was done in the office. The Sydney University research showed that most common days to work from home are Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Wednesday, Monday, and Tuesday have the highest levels of work from home, with 63%, 61%, and 60% of those who work from home during weekdays working from home on these days. In contrast, only 52% and 55% of employees who work from home are Friday, Thursday during the weekdays. There are also legal risks, especially given that workers choose to work remotely due to caregiving responsibilities or disability. Employees will need to carefully consider if such policy risks discriminating against those who protected characteristics and ensure they are treated fairly in the eyes of the workforce as well as the law. That's no different than before. I mean, if someone can't physically get into it's tough too, because if you can't get to the office, you've obviously hired them during the pandemic, so you've got to take that on board. But if you could get to the office beforehand, you can get to the office now, obviously depending on extenuating circumstances. But what was done before the pandemic should be done now. If you work in the office, then you've got to work in the office now. I don't see a problem with it at all. Again, if you've got extenuating circumstances, then that's fine. But if you just don't want to come into the office, then sucks to be you, man. Suck it up. You got to do it. You want to get paid? That's how it is. Now, another crazy thing. I got sent this story actually. Last week, I think it was. A woman is seeking compensation for being stared at for too long. Now, I spoke about this probably 2 or 3 weeks prior. A club was bringing in policies in terms of basically staring at people for too long and deeming it like sexual harassment, which I think is ridiculous. But the story from the Korean Mail: a woman is seeking $20,000 compensation, claiming she was repeatedly leered at and perved on by men at the Bondi Icebergs Club pool and sauna, alleging the club did nothing to protect her from what, people's eyeballs. Camilla Feegstone, 28, has lodged a formal complaint with the Australian Human Rights Commission, citing sexual discrimination after her club membership was suspended. Good, she sounds like a lunatic. In a lengthy letter, she is seeking damages for legal costs, hurt and humiliation, and reputational damages. I mean, the only thing she's done that herself. I mean, the fact that regardless of whether you're an attractive woman or not, people stare at you, they stare at you. Look away, like turn. Like, unless someone physically touches you, and that's a different story. But people look at people. Men look at women, women look at men, women look at women. Like, what are we doing here? The fact, and you've also kind of conned us, because if it hurt you that bad, you wouldn't put a dollar value on it. You're asking for $20,000 compensation, so it's a money grab. If you were so hurt, you would pursue it to the fullest, get rid of the money, and try and get a policy or some sort of legislation put in place. But you're not, you just want money. So you've put a dollar value on yourself essentially, which is 20 grand. I think it's nuts. Yeah, she should be banned from the club. You don't want lunatics and idiots at your club, so I'm glad with that. I think they didn't name the guys, thankfully, because I don't think they should be named, because I think it's ridiculous. But I think this route that we're going down is ridiculous. I'm not on board with that. Getting 20 grand and having the Human Rights Commission involved for sexual discrimination. How are you being discriminated against? Do you want to be looked at, or do you not want to be looked at? So you're being discriminated, so you don't want to be looked at. But then guaranteed if no one was looking at you over a period of time, you can be like, oh, hang on, nobody's looking at me. Why? So do you want to be looked at? Do you not want to be looked at? Make up your mind, bro. Sticking on this trend of just nutters, Maxim put out their hottest women list last week, week before. And it's just the Australian list. So obviously, you've got your top 10. I'm not going to go over every single one. I'm just going to cover the 100 through 90 and 10 through to 1. Margot Robbie is number 1, obviously. She'd probably be in the top 3 in the world, I guess, whoever's doing those lists. But Maxim have put a trans person, trans man, trans woman, at 92. Now, there's a few ways to look at this, You've got someone who used to be a man, now in the hottest 100 list at 92. Or you could also look at it as there are 7 or 8 other women that are uglier than someone who used to be a dude. I'd be so pissed if I was 93, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 100. So that's what I want to look at. I want to look at who are the 100 through to 93. Now, 92 is this Danny Laidley, used to be involved in the AFL, who is now a woman. So number 100, I don't know all these people either, but number 100 is Michelle Bullock. I have no idea who that is. 99 is Anastasia Palaszczuk. 98, Lydia Thorpe. 97, Beck Judd and Kate Twigley, which is weird. You've got 2 people. 96, Penny Wong, getting like politicians involved here. 95, Molly Moyes, no idea who that is. 94, Michelle Kimberley, no idea. 93, Jodie Hayden, no idea. And then 92, obviously, is this Danny Laidley. Now, I'm not going down the whole list, but if you look at, 84 is the Real Housewives of Sydney. You've got a whole TV show in one spot. So that tells you the state of this list. But this Danny Laidley is on the same list, is 90-something people away from Margot Robbie. So 91 people away, attractive-wise, from Margot Robbie. Now, the 10, I didn't even know some of these people who are in the top 10 list, and this isn't my list either. But number 10, you've got Evelyn Ellis, who was on MAFS. She's a smoke show, so I get why she's on the list. Number 9 is Abby Chatfield. She's attractive. Number 8 is Ariane Titmus. Number 7 is Kaylee McGowan. You got Jess Mowboy, number 6. I didn't even know who this chick was. G Flip as number 5. Not on my list. Number 4, Sophie Monk. Delta Goodman, number 3. Number 2 is Sam Kerr. And then you've got number 1, Margot Robbie. That's kind of a no-brainer. If you had Margot Robbie anywhere else, you'd have to justify the shit out of that. But, I guess all we can do is laugh. Anyone with half a brain thinks, that's a bit insane. But that's the direction we're going in. You wanted equal rights, you wanted equality, you want men to be women and women to be men. This is the route we're going down. You wanted it, you're getting all of it. You can't have bits and pieces of it. You can't pick and choose what you want. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get all the craziness, all the lunacy, all this bullshit. Women can be men can be women. Gender fluid, binary, bi. I just saw a thing, and each their own, this whole LGBTQ thing. And you look at it, and a lot of it is, if you just want to, I don't care if I get roasted, but lesbian, gay, gay, bisexual, you're gay by proxy because you're a man wanting to be with a man or a woman wanting to be with a woman, or, you know what I mean? You're one or the other. Who else we got? LGBTQ, queer, gay, trans. Are you a trans man who now is a woman who sleeps with men? Or are you a trans woman who is now a man who sleeps with women? I don't know. But they're all linked. They're all gay, essentially. So why don't we just have the G? I get the bi, you're one or the other, you're going between the two, but it's all linked by this one thing. It's all the G. So I don't know why we got the LGBTQ, all this other stuff, when we can all cover it by the G. Straight, bisexual, gay. 3. I don't know why we need all this extra shit. But again, that's the road we're going down. So let's go down it completely. You've got a man who is now a woman as the 92nd hottest woman in the country. I mean, I'd be more pissed if I was 103 to 93. I'd be pissed, but we're moving on. So the next story is drug possession decriminalised in one Australian jurisdiction. Now, I'm going to gloss over this. I'm not going to cover this too much. So Canberra seems to be the one who does this kind of stuff first. An Australian first move to decriminalise small quantities of illicit drugs has begun in the national capital. The ACT's drug decriminalisation kicks in from Saturday, meaning cautions, small fines, and diversion programs will be handed out in place of prison sentences. I mean, a lot of this was also to keep the youth out of prison because there's just an overwhelmingly large amount of kids in prison for this kind of thing. But what teaches kids more? Fines or going to prison? I mean, prison would bore the shit out of me in general, but it would also scare me more than getting a fine. But yeah, I think we should probably stick with how it is. It is the first time drug possession can't draw criminal sanction in an Australian jurisdiction and could be a test case for the rest of the nation moving forward. Substances like cocaine, ecstasy, amphetamine, and ice are covered by the new laws, although officials are quick to stress the move is about hard minimisation rather than creating a free-for-all. Obviously, you can't just be like, yep, do what you want, which part of me would be on board with. I mean, like I said, if you're a drug addict and you drug overdose, then you're a drug addict who overdoses. It is what it is. I mean, we don't want this stuff on the streets, but it's always going to be a thing. So you're kind of minimizing it anyway by just giving people fines and reducing prison sentences or getting rid of them completely. So why don't you just, I don't know, create your own shit, tax the hell out of it, make your money off of it, have a bit more security over it, make it a little bit more safer, and then whatever happens, happens. It's still an offence to supply or manufacture drugs, obviously, and those found by authorities will be confiscated. And drivers caught with illegal substances in their system will face hefty penalties, so probably fines rather than jail. The ACT government is not expecting a significant change in patterns or of drug use, but will independently review the laws after 2 years to assess their impact. The safest option is to not take drugs at all. Obviously, we recognise people will use illicit drugs and believe a health-based approach to drug use leads to better outcomes. ACT Health Minister Rachel Stephen-Smith said in a statement, by treating drug use as a health issue, not a criminal one, we are providing pathways for people to access the health services and support they need. It's both. It's a criminal one because it's against the law, and it's a criminal one that leads to a health issue. If you take drugs, you're committing a crime, which also creates the health issue. You didn't have the health issue before you took the drug. I saw a thing, Matthew Perry passed away last week or the week before, and an interview came out from him years ago about how he was talking about alcoholism. Essentially, his alcoholism wasn't his fault. And he was talking with a psychologist who disagreed with him because the psychologist has half a brain. And his argument was, the first drink is my fault, it's my choice, but me being an alcoholic, the need for the second, third, fourth, or however many isn't my fault. It's alcoholism, it's that's fault. And the psychologist is like, well, no, it's a choice. It's like, yeah, it's a choice to take the first one, but it's not my choice to continue drinking. It's me being an alcoholic. It's the dependency on alcohol. It's the syndrome, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, no, it's not. You created your own need or want for this kind of thing. I don't get how does a murderer get to say, oh man, look, sorry, it was just an urge I have. You know, I killed one person and now I really want to do it. Does that in the court of law work? Oh, I murdered one person, that was my fault, but the other 9, I kind of just had this urge to do it. So can you not, charge me on the other 9? No, you fucking lunatic. What are you talking about? It doesn't work like that. Your choices lead to consequences. If you take a drug and you become a drug addict, that is completely on you. You don't get to say, oh, the first drug I took was my choice, but me being a drug addict is the drug's fault. Fucking, what are you talking about? The ACT government is not expecting a significant change in patterns of drug use, but will independently review the law after 2 years to assess their impact. I've already just read that. What I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't think you should remove the prison sentences. If someone gets caught, look, I'm a big fan of capitalism in terms of like, you make your money, however that is. If you're a drug dealer and you don't get caught, you're a drug dealer who hasn't gotten caught, but you run the risk of just living a very risky lifestyle. Obviously, there's a lot of financial reward in that, but there's also just living life on the edge of just 24/7. If you're someone who gets caught dealing drugs, then you should suffer the full consequences of that stuff. If you don't get caught, you don't get caught. But if you're, some local dealer who just gets caught pretty frequently and just gets fined, the amount of money that local drug dealer makes is going to cover that fine anyway. So he's going to keep doing it. It doesn't make sense. You're just removing the threat of going to prison and removing that person from the situation completely, removing it from the street, the suburb, the state. You're just going to keep that person doing the same thing. If you want to do the wrong thing, you're going to do the wrong thing. I don't understand why you're removing the threat of going to jail for it. So one thing I spoke about probably about a month ago in the UK, they're not looking at, they are banning the XL bully breeds. Now there's been more updates in the last couple of weeks or so. They're basically going to be euthanizing these XL bully breeds, which I think is disgusting. This is the UK, they're also incentivizing owners to hand their dogs over for a few $100s to have their dogs killed. And they're also allowing the dog owners to keep their dogs for the period of their life if they don't want to hand them in. Now, this is obviously something in the UK. If this ever came here, I would just move. I would 100% move to another country. There's absolutely no way that I think you should remove a breed of something because of shitty owners. It's not, if you raise a shitty kid, they're going to be a shitty person. To remove a dog breed because of a few dogs killing people, again, it's the dog owner's fault. And look, if a dog kills people, then I get that singular dog has consequences. They've got to put it down. But to remove the 99% of other good pit bulls or other pit bull crosses is just ridiculous. You don't euthanize pedophiles, do you? You don't euthanize murderers. And yet they're pretty horrendous people. You go, oh no, they need to be rehabilitated in a society. Do the same for the dogs then. What are we talking about? It's the exact same thing. And yet you're going to remove a breed of like the most loyal. If you raise a pit bull, I've got a pit bull cross. If you raise that dog right, they are the most loving and loyal dogs you can imagine. Like any dog though, they can be dangerous. Like, I don't understand the threat, like the idea of, oh no, they're too dangerous. People are dangerous. You're going to remove people? It doesn't work like that. Everyone is capable of committing horrible things. It's whether you would or you could. I could be a murderer. Would I? Probably not. It's could versus would. And the idea of just removing a breed because you don't like it, and the idea of you're going to pay people to do it, like to hand their dogs over, is insane. There is not a dollar value that you could give me that I would hand my dog over, because if you're going to do that, you're also going to do it on other things. If you're going to just be completely disloyal person to your dog, oh my God, I would lose my mind. But details announced of American XL bully breed dog ban in England and Wales. Now, I've seen heaps of petitions to get this done, to obviously get it cancelled. Breed will be added to banned list from 31st of December, and owners have until end of January to register them. Well, you should obviously have your dog registered anyway. American XL bully dogs will be added to the list of banned dog breeds from 31st of December. The government has confirmed as it's released further details of how the ban will be implemented. Rules coming into force at the end of the year will make it illegal to breed, sell, advertise, exchange, gift, rehome, abandon or allow stray bully breed dogs, XL bully breed dogs in England and Wales. From the 31st of December, XL bully dogs must be kept on a lead and be muzzled in public. Owners who wish to keep their dogs have until the end of January to register them. So you are being allowed to keep them until obviously the end of their life. From 1st of January 24, it will become illegal to own an XL bully dog if it is not registered on the index of exempted dogs. And the animals will be subject to restrictions, including have to be microchipped and neutered. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Owners who fail to comply could face criminal record and unlimited fines, and their dog could be seized. Now, I'm a fan of fining owners, and all that kind of thing anyway. Because it's your responsibility as a dog owner completely. It doesn't matter if the dog gets out or if it slips off a lead, you have to have complete and utter control over that. It's the same thing as a car. You're in charge of, I mean, it's a bit drastic comparing a dog to a car, but it's the same, methodology. You can't just go, oh, sorry, the car slipped out of my hands. It is what it is. No, you have to be complete control of the car. You have to be in complete control of the dog. My dog got attacked like a year and a half ago because the dog just got out of the garage. Now, if that attacked me, I would never go for a dog anyway. I'd go after the owner. But the idea of just finding dog owners heavily is what you can do. They're talking about jail. I think that's a bit rough too, but I think to remove or euthanize, destroy, whatever you want to call it, these dogs who are essentially products of their environment. If you raise them a certain way, then that's how they're going to be. Same thing as kids. If you raise a shitty kid, they're going to be a shitty adult. I don't know why we can't comprehend that. Again, like I said, we don't euthanize pedophiles, rapists, murderers who are, arguably the worst people in the world. We rehabilitate them to get them back into society where they generally recommit. What the fuck are we talking about? The Environment Secretary, Therese Coffey, said, "We are taking quick and decisive action to protect the public from tragic dog attacks. And today I have added the XL bully type to the list of dogs prohibited under the Dangerous Dog Act." I'm not going to read this whole thing because it just goes on and on and on. It's going to piss me off. But again, if this ever came into this country or this state, I would just flat out move. There's no way. There is no way I would get rid of my dog. No way. Not a chance. Yeah, that ain't happening. And I think that if the government tries to take control of that, that's just, no, I'm not a fan. Now, something I did create over the last week or so was, after the whole voice referendum thing a few weeks ago and politics starting to ramp up, I was like, I'm going to create an idea of like what, if someone who was an independent, I said, I like the idea of a strong independent coming up and being like, these are 10 policies that I'm going to implement or bring in, introduce, change, etc. And I can get behind that. So like, I'm going to try and bring up 10 different policies or laws that I would change or laws that I would introduce, etc. and go from there. Now, these aren't all like 100% set in stone. Obviously, the vast majority of them all need work, so don't shoot the messenger. But this is just a very rough thing of what I've come up with. So we're going to, and these are not in list of like importance and whatnot. So first thing I want to touch on is schooling. So I would have mandated things brought into the schooling system that we need to teach kids, whether it's just for a term or they can choose to study them longer. When you look at like grade 10 is kind of like a gap year into year 11 and 12. You've got to study, you got every couple of, you got a term or two with just random subjects that you don't even elect, but you've got to do to see if you want to continue them into 11 or 12. I would just do that. I would continue that, but I would change exactly what all that garbage is that gets introduced. So again, they get to choose whether they want to do them or not, but it's mandatory that you do them for at least for a term or two. So things like finance, investing, accounting, like even simply like taxes, etc. Having things like nutrition. I mean, you already teach PE, etc. So having things like nutrition, I think should be, on the same scale as PE. You talk about the physical education, nutrition is a part of that. Medicine too, which I think is a bit iffy. I can't really go into too much on that because I think it's important, but I guess medicine and nutrition can be, and fitness, I think it can be all put under one sort of category. I think you should keep religion out of schools. I did RE in primary school just to get out of doing a subject, just to get out of half an hour of school. It was twice a week. This woman come in and she would talk about God, etc., which I know sounds horrible. When I was younger, I just finished reading the Quran, and that opened my eyes to a couple things. But when I was younger, I just did it to get out of school for half an hour twice a week. So when I say I think it should be kept out of schools, I think religion should be taught by parents, not teachers or anyone else. I think religion is something that if you're going to implement it, should be done by the parents, i.e., or even like your priest at your local church. I don't think that the schools should be doing it. I think the schools are there purely to educate the kids, maths, English, etc. I don't think religion should be taught in schools. I think it should be indoctrinated by the parents. Parents should choose whether, if they're religious or not. All right, we're Muslim, we're teaching this. We're Christian, we're teaching this. I don't think the schools should be getting involved. They're there to educate, not push religion. All kids must attend these if you want to, and there's like things like life skills that I've brought into, like, again, this is like kind of like an after school care thing. This can get brought in. I mean, I would have loved to have done this if I was, looking back now. I think things like mechanics, the basics of how to look after a car. I think everyone should know how to change a tire, how to change your oil, how to do your coolant, your water, etc. I think all kids should know how to do that when they actually get a car. I think the basics of tech. I think as we get older and move into a very, AI, technological based society, I think, and if we look at how glued kids are to their phone, I think they should know the importance of technology. So I think even if you look at things like Microsoft Excel, adults, including myself, don't know the basics of that stuff. So I think teaching kids a valuable skill, which they can also monetize moving forward, I think is a skill that they should learn. And also, you should teach them how to look out for things like cyber scams. I mean, it's so easy to look at your emails or getting texts from these scammers, and kids have no idea what they are. I think you should learn about that. I think you look at, again, this is going to get roasted. I mean, you look at primary school, high school, and then ideally, if you go into university, etc. I think university is slowly becoming it's slowly looking like one of those things where unless you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, any kind of those things where you need like an OP1, 2, etc., then university is for that. But the idea that you can learn so much online or through books in business, that you don't necessarily need to go to business, to study business at university, shows that university isn't the be all and end all that we all thought it was, 10, 20, 30 years ago. So I'm like, well, maybe we could combine somehow the idea of university and high school together. Now, grade 8, this is when I went to high school. When I was in schooling, it was year 1 to 7, and then high school was 8 and 12. 8, 9, and 10 are kind of a waste of time. It's year 11 and 12 where all that stuff counts. So why don't we somehow combine university and high school? Again, I don't know how that would work, but making high school matter more in terms of, okay, you've just left high school. You're generally 17, 18 when you leave high school, and I've got a degree in this out of high school that I can now not have to waste 5 or 10 years going to university for. Maybe I can do something else. Maybe I can just go straight into a job, or I can go straight into this, or I can start a business because I've learned, after 2 or 3 years doing this. I don't know. I think the idea of combining the two, again, I'm not just talking about business. I think there's so many subjects in university that you could add to high school that I think would be invaluable. But again, how that happens, I don't know. Voting is the second one. I think I was umming and ahhing about how, should it be mandatory to vote? You get fines if you don't. I think it's like $20 or $30 fine if you don't. I would introduce voting as soon as you can work. You should vote. I think if you're old enough, 16, 9 months, 17 to start a job, you can vote rather than it be the 18. Now, if you can prove definitive reasons why you can't vote, disability, medical, family, whatever, the same sort of scenarios that you have now, then that's fine. You get out of voting for the year. But if you elect to not vote, and it's like a scenario that I thought of, if you elect to not vote just for the sake of not voting, then you next year immediately don't get to vote. And again, that's probably what you want, but I think we're wasting time with people who don't, do these dummy votes, etc., or people who just, vote for like the sex party, just randomly. You know what I mean? I think you look at now, I think it's very important where people should know who they're voting for and what their party stands for, or the independent that they think they like, what they stand for. I think it's important to vote. I think it should be mandated to a certain point. Whether you increase fines, again, whether you don't fine them at all, I think lowering it to the age of 17, I think is a good idea, because then you get a whole new generation of voters earlier, which means you get more voting. Again, I think if you choose not to vote, next year you're removed. If you don't want to vote at all, don't vote. I don't think you should be fined for it. It's a choice. If you want to vote, you vote. Governments, this is the third one, governments and non-profits must list any and all spendings and show where it goes and how it's spent. This includes any financial aids. So if a government has, again, these numbers I'm just throwing out there, but if a government has $100 billion to spend, their budget, I want every single dollar and cents that's spent to be listed. You want to find out how much a professional athlete gets paid their salary? I want to know a tenth of this went to education, a tenth of this went to roads, a tenth of this went here. If there's all this money that's not allocated, I want to know why. If I'm a taxpayer and I'm paying for all this shit, I want to know where it's going. And non-profits must list any and all spending to show where it goes. If you're this non-profit organization and you're worth billions of dollars, I want to know why. I want to know what you're doing with that money, etc. And if you're, again, I don't have an issue with a business, corporation, someone giving money to politicians or groups, etc., if they're listing it, but that'll be covered in one down the road. Number 4 is bringing in driving tests for people over the age of 65 or 70. I don't know which one yet. If you hit the age of 65 or 70, you should go and take a driving test every 2 or 3 years. If they pass, you're all good. If you fail, then unfortunately, I think you should have your license taken off you. But in return, you obviously get to retake the test again if, in 6 or 12 months. But you were given completely free public transport, either for life or until you can get your license back again. Whether that's trams, trains, buses, it's completely free. Again, taking someone off the road who could have potential to cause an accident, I think you're removing that. And again, it might cost a bit more money, but this is just me like a personal thing. Moving on to the 5th one, taxes. So the current system, I think we get taxed every year. Or if you look at it, if I earn 100 grand a year, I get taxed on that every week. And then once a year, I get taxed on what's left, what you haven't taxed. And then at the end of that, if you think I haven't been taxed enough, I have to pay more. It's kind of like, hang on, what the fuck are we talking about here? So I came up with this idea of okay, again, whether this is a good thing, whether it'll work or not, I don't know. So can we just get double or triple pumped? It's getting a bit stupid. So it's like, maybe it could do us a favor when we get some back. It's like, you've already fucked me 52 times a year. I'm going to do it again. So I had this thought, we need to still pay something, because at the end of the day, public health, schooling, roads, etc., all need to be paid for somehow. So maybe if this is a shit idea, I don't know, but rather than, we're getting taxed 53 times a year, why don't you do like a one-off payment at the end of the financial year? So a lump sum based off your yearly income, and the brackets could look something like this. For example, this is obviously something that is not set in stone. So if you look at like something like e-tax, for example, you can put in your denominations and you can track it week to week, month to month. You get like a vague estimate of what you're looking at. So I think something that could be created like that, where I can track that every, where I'm expected, how much money I'm expected to lose or get back at tax. And it's my responsibility to keep that up to date. But rather than just getting taxed every week, I just want like a lump sum at the end of the year that I fork over. Again, I don't know how that would work, but this is what I'm getting to. So if you don't know the current tax system, you have a look at it, because this will make a bit more sense. So 0 to 25K gets taxed a sum of 2.5K. Obviously, what's ever left over, you get to keep. 25 to 50K gets taxed a sum of 5 to 7K. 50 to 100 gets taxed a sum of 10 to 15K. 100 to 250 is 25 to 33K that you lose. 250K to 400, you lose 50K. 400 to 650 is 110K. 650 to a mil, you lose 225K. A mil and up is 300K, and then 200K for every mil after that. Now, the side notes, obviously, we get this little thing where you lose a chunk of money and then you get taxed per dollar over that. Now, that's where I haven't really put in. If you look at before the new thing got brought in, if you earn 180 grand, you lost like 48 of that, and then you got taxed. No, you lost like 81 of that, and then you got taxed 48 cents to the dollar for every dollar after that, which I think is ridiculous. So you're just generally getting taxed half. So I think, again, I don't know what the percentage would be, but you just get like a flat lump sum taken and then small percentage afterwards. But this gets done at the end of every financial year rather than week to week kind of thing. So number 6, new laws I would bring in. Now, rather than use up a spot for each law I would bring in or adjust, I'm just going to rattle some off and then we'll move to number 7. So false allegation consequences. Now, in the last few years, you've seen people get accused of rape, all these kinds of things. And I think if you're someone who, man or woman, if you accuse someone of a false crime and it's deemed that you knew you was false, you should have consequences. Whether that's a monetary fine for the first, second offense, third offense, you're just going to jail. You need to learn. Pedophilia, I think there's certain things that you can bring back the death penalty for. I'm not against it. Having someone sit in a prison cell just accumulating, Australian tax dollars, I'm not, these people who have committed hundreds of, sexual crimes and they're just in jail. I'm like, why don't you just remove them off the board? I don't see the point. Chemical castration, which could tie into the pedophilia story. If someone who you deem just can't be fixed, then maybe they just need to have that removed. Again, whether that would work or not. Government officials, politicians, pays to be capped at $300 per year. And you cannot have a net worth of $5 or $10 million whilst in office. So you cannot have accumulated a shitload of money while you're in office, because if you're earning $300K per year, you shouldn't have a portfolio of fucking tens of millions of dollars, because it doesn't make sense how you got that. So obviously there's some dodgy shit going on. And once you've accumulated that $5 or $10 million of self-worth, you get out of politics and you can teach everyone how you did it, because everyone wants to know how you did it. So pay cap at $300 per year. That's for Prime Minister and everybody. If you're a backbencher earning like 200 plus K a year, then that should be that. And then the politician, the Prime Minister should be the main money earner at 300. Everyone else gets 100, 150, 200, then it's capped. I don't think you should be earning a shitload of money like that for the jobs you aren't doing. Number 7, immigration. Now, 2 thoughts. We either only allow a set number of people in each year, and once we hit that number, we close the border until the new year period. Or we only allow people in the country once our homeless numbers are under a set number. So we need to look after our own first, and then we can take in other people. Or once that number goes over during a period, then we close it until the number goes down. So if say our number for homeless people is 1 million, it's 1,000,001. All right, we close the border. We need to get a couple people looked after. Then we can start worrying about people. I think the idea that we're just bringing people in, yet we've got people who are living on the streets. Now, again, you can't fix everyone. Some people just want to live on the street, and that's totally fine. And I also don't think you should just give handouts to people. I think people need to work for things. But there are some people who just are dealt a shitty card and they want to be able to do more and they just can't get out of the circumstances. Those are the kinds of people I'm talking about. We need to worry about them rather than people that, unfortunately, want to come here on boats and all that, etc. We need to worry about our own first, and then we can look after everyone else. I think we could also look after those people more effectively once people in our own country are better off. Number 8, the Bad Guy Act. Now, I spoke about this like a couple months ago. Now, this obviously needs work, but in a nutshell, we change our self-defense laws where if someone needs to break into a home, the residents of that home have a bit more protection in terms of, say I have a young family, and wife and kids, I should have their thought process of where someone's just broken in. I need to think, regardless of whether it's true or not, that they are there to hurt my family. Whether they're there to steal the keys in my car, whatever, I need to think they're there to hurt me or my family. I need to treat them accordingly. Now, if I break their legs, I shouldn't be charged with assault, grievous bodily harm, anything. It is what it is. You broke in, Bad Guy Act covers me. Obviously, you can't kill them because that's extreme, but there needs to be a bit more things in place where criminals and youth offenders are a bit more deterred from breaking in and trying to steal people's shit, or, just vandals. I think the idea of someone who can physically hurt me scares me a bit more than, I might get a fine or whatever, anything like that. And if you give a bit more power to the people, again, with parameters in place, you can't just turn this into the purge. But I think if we give a bit more power and flexibility to the people to look after themselves, I think that will deter youth crime, theft, all that kind of stuff. Again, it does need to be work. Number 9, free childcare for all children of emergency services personnel. This includes doctors, police, fireys, nurses also. If I left anyone out in those things, I apologize. I think those kinds of things, we have free childcare for, or not free childcare, but very cheap childcare for certain groups of people or certain men or women in certain situations. I think we can give free childcare to people who are literally looking after us. I think that should be a thing. Number 10 is no dole or benefits to be paid out to lazy people. So if you physically can't work due to a mental disorder or a physical disorder, handicap, whatever, then that's totally fine. I get that. I'm on board with that. But laziness isn't a disability. It's a choice. So unlucky, you're not getting paid anymore, get to fucking work, do something. As long as you can prove you physically or mentally cannot work through a disability or impairment, then you're all good. I have no issue with that. You'll have 12 months to find work. So say as of January 2025, we're not paying. So you've got a year to get your shit together and get a job. You got to move somewhere, do whatever. You got 12 months to do it. So it's not something that I would just bring in tomorrow, change it. You got 12 months to figure your shit out, get a job, sort your life out. That's how I would do it. I also think, being addicted to drugs and alcohol isn't the hardworking taxpayer's problem. Again, it goes back to it's a choice. You might not have taken a drug or had a drink with the intention of becoming an addict, but negligently you didn't think that it could have been a consequence. So it's no different to, if I was drinking and got behind the wheel of a car, I had no intention of killing someone, but it's a consequence that I should have thought about. So it's no different to people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol. I shouldn't be paying for them not wanting to work. You don't want to work? I'm not paying for a lifestyle that you want to snort. Ain't happening. Prepaid, they were talking about having prepaid cards brought in place, which I think it's a good idea. I think if you're someone who's on the dole, it should be paid for bills, medical expenses, food. That's it. It shouldn't be paid for alcohol, drugs, etc. It doesn't work like that. It should be done through an online portal. I don't know how that gets done. It just sounds like a hard thing to do, but maybe it needs to get done. You can't withdraw cash on it either, because then that would just defeat the purpose. So again, you'd have 12 months to figure it out. But yeah, I just think it needs to be done. You'd have to figure that over a 12-month basis and just work out, okay, again, if you have to go to a different sushi place because they've all of a sudden can't pay cash, then too bad. We all know sushi places don't have their FPOS machine working randomly throughout. We know what they're doing. We're not stupid. They just want to take cash. I have no problem with that. But if you all of a sudden want to withdraw money on a prepaid card that's meant purely for food, bills, petrol, and you just want to go and buy drugs or give it to whoever, ain't happening. You want to put in a slot machine. It's not what it's for. You can do all that if you work for your own money. I'm on board with that. But again, I don't think it's our responsibility or our problem that people just don't want to work. So if people now become homeless because of that, it is what it is. But moving forward, again, we'll try and pump these out once a week. I don't know if I get another warning for this after that. I did put up the warning too, so I'm not talking nonsense.